This used to be me. I was fat, unattractive, and had no confidence whatsoever. This is me now. I'm lean, I have better confidence, and I get more attention from girls. In this video, I'm going to tell you why being lean is a real life superpower and why you need to get it as soon as possible. Number 1, you get more attention without saying a single word. When I was fat back in the day, right, I used to get no attention whatsoever. Every single time I got a new job, the same story just played out over and over and over. People would say hi when it was the first day at work. But I noticed, as the weeks passed by, less and less people started to give me attention. And, especially the girls. I remember most of the girls, right? They didn't even give me 1 second of eye contact. Whenever I looked at them, they just looked away immediately. Now, when I look back at it, right, I can honestly understand why they didn't give me any attention whatsoever. I didn't have anything to me that was worth giving attention to. My looks, my persona, or just my general energy. There's nothing to show about. Just look at this picture right here, right? This was me back in the day. And what do you see in this picture? I was shy, unattractive, and I had no energy to me whatsoever. Whenever I was walking somewhere, I was constantly, just looking down at the floor. Whenever I was walking, when people talk with me, I would just walk like this. And I didn't even lift my head up. I was just walking like this over and over and over. However, right, this completely changed when I decided to get lean. It was like pressing on a button and just completely transforming my life. I started getting more of a jawline. I had more definition in my arms and my veins started popping. And my energy was so much better and just way more positive. The next job that I got when I actually was lean, I could instantly notice just a night and day difference in the way that people were treating me. They were actually giving me so much more attention and positive attention, without me even saying anything about it. Just the way that I was looking just made them have a such better impression of me. Simply, only on my looks. I didn't say a single word to them. Especially with the girl colleagues, right? I could just tell, the subtle ways that they were showing interest. You catch them with eye contact, right? But as soon as you catch them with your eyes, they instantly look away and, they start blushing. And that's when you instantly can just tell that there is some interest here. And it's just a night and day difference when you're actually in shape. Now, if you're serious about changing your body and want to experience the same things just like I'm talking about, then click the first link in the description where I will personally guide you step by step along the way to lose fat and become so much more attractive in way faster time than it took me. If that sounds interesting, then click the first link in the description. Now, besides just the girls giving you more attention, I also noticed that the guy colleagues also gave you so much more attention. It was 10 times easier to strike up a conversation and eventually also make new friends along the way. And this was purely based on that I was actually lean. The first impressions is just so much more important than you realize. Here's the thing, right? I didn't change my personality whatsoever. I was literally the exact same guy. The only difference that happened to me, right, was my physique and nothing else. And just by this one simple change, my life completely transformed. People started giving me this positive energy out of nowhere. And I didn't even have to say a single word. Now, if that doesn't sound like the greatest thing ever, then I don't know what is. Number 2, life itself becomes way easier. I know you're thinking right now that I'm actually over-exaggerating, but this is honestly the truth. I can say with hand on my chest, right, that the moment that I decided to get lean and improve my physique, every single aspect of my life, right, every single aspect has become so much easier. I remember reading somewhere, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but it said that there are more millionaires in the world than there are people with a lean physique and having 6-pack abs. And isn't that just crazy to think about? It's more rare to be lean and in good shape than to be a freaking millionaire. That's how rare it is nowadays to actually be in good shape. I mean, just look around you, right? The majority of people look out of shape, and honestly, they look like trash, right? And then they see someone like you who's dedicated to actually being in shape. They see your wide shoulders and they see that you have vascularity in your arms. I mean, just think about this to yourself. It's a rare thing to see, right? So you can't help yourself but to admire it. Just think about this for yourself, when you're walking outside, right, and you see someone that has a really good physique, through their clothes, you can't help but just look at them more than you usually do. Now, you might think that this is shallow, right? And to some degree, it actually is. but this is just a reality and we have to accept it. Pretty privilege is a thing, right? And we can't deny this. That's why, models or whatever you can think of, the only thing that they have going for them is that they're good looking. Meanwhile, their persona is complete trash. But that doesn't matter because they look good and that's what they make their career of. Being lean alone has improved my social skills, my confidence, my mental health, and the list goes on and on. I can honestly say that being lean has also helped me financially, because there's been times where I've gone to a job interview and the job interviewer has been a girl. And I could just sense that she was so overly nice to me. And the only reason which that would be, right, is that I was looking good and I had a good first impression. And before I even knew it, she just instantly gave me the job. Now, of course, she maybe didn't give me the job purely because I was lean and looking good. But I can guarantee you, 100%, that me being lean and having a good first impression made a massive difference in me getting the job or not. You know that first impressions is more important than you think. And by being lean, you get the privileges without even saying a single word, because it's your presence and the way that you look that does the speaking. Remember, if you're serious about changing your body and want me to personally guide you step by step along the way to get lean and way more attractive in less time than it took me personally, then click the first link in the description. Number 3, people treat you better and with more respect. Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with the previous point that I mentioned, right? But this is more so related to, your job and just being in a more formal setting. I can still remember, back in the day when I was fat, just how the managers and people with higher roles in my job just treated me like complete garbage. Whenever they asked me to do basic tasks, go get that thing or whatever you can think of, and I didn't have to do it. They didn't force me to do it. I just instantly said yes anyway, because I had no balls to actually say anything else. So what ended up happening over and over was that I was just doing these extra tasks every single day without me even getting praise for it, because they just took it for granted. Because, I was the guy that didn't say no to anything. I was a yes man over and over and over. However, this dynamic, right, it completely changed once I actually got lean. I was so much more confident. I was way more attractive, and the list goes on. And I could instantly tell that they started treating me differently from that day on, when I actually was looking better. I developed the confidence to say no to these random bullshit tasks that I didn't want to do. And because of that, people started respecting it as well. They noticed that I wasn't this doormat anymore that you could just walk over. I actually had the confidence to say no to things that I didn't want to do. And because of that, they gave me so much more respect. I'm telling you, this is so much more important than you think. Not only when it comes to your job environment, right, but just your life in general. You have to take up more space. You probably noticed, right, just like I did back in the day, when you met new people or, especially girls for the first time, and you didn't have any confidence to you whatsoever, you can just notice that they instantly started judging you differently, right? This is one of the main reasons why, and this was for me as well, back in the day. The first impression was weak. And just because of that single thing alone, just in a matter of seconds, right, that person would judge your entire persona based simply on your first impression. And the first impression is, you can guess what, right? Your looks. Now, I'm not saying, that you have to fake your persona or be someone that you're not. However, you need to put more focus on improving your first impression. And the best way you can do that is by getting lean, because that's the first thing that people see. The harsh truth is, right, that looks will always and always matter when you're meeting new people, and especially girls. And that's just something that you have to accept. Either you play the game to your advantage and actually improve your looks, or you stand on the sidelines and cry about it. And then you're going to be like a fat loser when you're 40 years old. You make the choice. Number 4, you become a source of inspiration to people around you. I've been working on my body and improving my health for some time now. And it wasn't until recently that I heard about my cousin following in my footsteps, without even telling me about it in the first place. I've been posting YouTube videos and, fitness Instagram reels, and, the list goes on. And one day, right, my cousin DM'd me on Instagram, and he told me that he had lost over 50 pounds simply, by following my advice that I was posting, on my content. He wanted to thank me for the advice, and he wanted me to realize that I was helping more people than I actually thought. This completely changed my mindset when it comes to fitness and just getting in shape in general. you have so much bigger impact without you even realizing it. In my personal opinion, not only is it your duty, towards yourself to improve your looks and get lean, but it's also your duty towards other people too. I was just doing my own thing. I was posting content on social media and just improving my body. And simply by me sharing my own journey, right, I managed to transform someone else's life without even realizing it myself. I mean, just think about this to yourself. Isn't this awesome to think about? You can work on yourself, completely selfishly. And just by you doing that and being a form of inspiration to someone else, they can follow in your footsteps. Meanwhile, you're just working on yourself and you're just helping them along the way without even doing anything. Now, why I'm telling you this specifically is because if you lack the motivation right now, to get lean for your own personal benefits, then also do it for the people that you care about. Become that source of inspiration when it comes to getting in shape and overall health. Someone that people can look up to, whether it's your friends or your family or whatever you can think of. Become that person that leads the way. And without you even knowing it, right, then people will follow in your footsteps and just create a better life for themselves. You show them that it's actually possible to change if you just want it bad enough and you lead by example. The positive circle, that keeps going over and over and over, right, is that you work on yourself. In return, other people get inspired. And when you notice that other people get results by the things that you do, you get even more motivated yourself to keep going. And it just keeps on going in this positive cycle over and over and over. Number 5, your self-image and self-belief drastically improves. Now, we all know, right, that being lean is great for your exterior and, the exterior validation. But it also is so important for your internal as well. And more specifically, your mental health. I can still remember to this day how I felt back in the day when I was fat. I had terrible self-belief. I had no self-confidence whatsoever, and the list goes on. I felt so bad about myself that sometimes I didn't even want to go outside. Me being out of shape became the main reason why I just stayed home all day. I was just playing video games, eating junk food, and feeling sorry about myself on a daily basis, over and over and over. And because of this, I didn't have any drive to actually improve my life. It was like I was stuck in this prison. But just taking one step in the right direction, just thinking about getting in shape and actually looking into ways to do it, that will completely change everything for you, because it will just show you that it's actually possible. You just have to change your mindset and actually believe that you can do it. Getting lean, right, it will unlock a new way of living that you didn't realize that you had. You will be so much more excited for your life. You'll get so much more confidence. You'll get more positive energy around you. You will start to get attention from girls that back in the day, right, you didn't even have a chance with. And now they're actually excited to talk with you, and the just list goes on and on. Now, if you're serious about changing your body and want to experience the same things just like I'm talking about, then click the first link in the description, where I will personally guide you step by step along the way to get lean and way more attractive in less time than it took me personally. You will start to get attention from girls that was out of your reach. And it will be so much easier to make friends and just improve your social skills and all those good things. If that sounds interesting, then click the first link in the description.